Great report.
It's all right if I sit right here because I got it in front of me here. Okay, we're back to where I have the running total of the current taxes. We started with last year's tax rate is 7.41 in the countywide, 10.37 in the rural. That was a decrease over the previous fiscal year of 4 cents and 13 cents. So what's that do? Okay, the next one, it shows what we were going to start with, the worst case scenario. When we started on January 1st, the worst case scenario, we were up 16 cents countywide, but we were down 18 cents in the rural unincorporated area, which is your townships. The next following week, we actually did 4 cents reductions in countywide, and we did a 5-cent reduction in the rural unincorporated. The reason there's probably a penny difference there between the two because they're equal cuts is because of rounding, because we carry them 5 places, so we may have a plus in one and a minus in the other. And overall, we're still up 12 cents countywide and 23 cents down in the rural. Last week, on the 9th, we actually I did the reorganization of the human resources and also took them from the various funds and put them all back in one fund as requested by the board, so it's easier to follow it. So we actually got a reduction last week of 1 penny on the countywide and actually 9 cents on the rural. The reason the rural's bigger is we used $100,000 of local option sales tax to reduce the tax askings. Then on the next sheet, I actually break it down by week. By fund, the tax askings were actually reduced. Shows what the deletions and reductions were, if there was any increases. Then on the following sheet, we'll get down to it here in a minute. Keep rolling. Keep rolling. Okay, I make a summary sheet here by fund. It's a different way of showing it by fund. So we've actually reduced tax asking since we started 316,000, about 317,000 so far. That's kind of recap what the board has done, and we're headed into today's hearings. Any questions? Thank you. We move on to building services. Yeah, bring it up.
Kenny Schmitz, Building Services Director. You'll notice one thing as we go through the different budgets for the different buildings. You'll see some areas where we've had previous requests for funds that are zeroed out. Those funds are either eliminated per line item or have been switched to another building, depending on what their current utilization is. Some of those have been shifted from building to building. One of those changes, of course, for example, would be for when building services actually moved to what is now called the Eagles Building. Some of those funds used to come through the courthouse where we were housed, and so that's an example of some of those areas where the funds have been switched. Other areas where you'll see zeros and may show up somewhere else are funds that were possibly placed in the wrong funding area and have been re-identified in an area which is an area that they really belong in. And you will see more of this probably next year as we make some changes going forward, where we reallocate funds and get them in the correct categories where the expenses really lie. So our first building is a courthouse, account 9101. And I'd ask for any questions that any of the board members might have on any of those expenses.
Mr. Chair. Sure. So on page number 2, on 4201, is this an example of one of those that you're referencing, Kenny? It's professional services?
Yes.
So to date, we haven't spent anything, and yet we're looking for 5,000. Is there something that
that would be a category that we're really not using. If there was, there's another category that we could use, like contractual services, or line items therefore that we really don't, or that we could really utilize those expenses under.
So is my assumption that we have 0 to date, and yet you have 5,000 that you're holding because there's other contractual services that you're anticipating? Am I understanding that correctly, or?
I'm anticipating, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't get you where you were at there, Jeremy.
Okay.
Yes, I am anticipating that is an area that we should be incorporating some fees into that we have not been in the past. Again, it's a column that it could be used under contractual services, but not all of them are. Example of that could be an eddy current test on a chiller tube bundle. While that's a technical testing that's done, it's really a professional service. It's not really a contractual service, so to speak, that you would repeat annually.
But you still identified $5,000 worth that you feel is still necessary?
Yes.
Of all those, whether you call them contractual or other service agreements?
Yes, because this again, it would not fall under a contractual agreement.
Okay.
It's really just a professional service. And an eddy current test would be like a 3-year professional service. You don't do it annually, but it would come up approximately every 3 years. So that's the type of thing that would fall underneath that.
Okay. Thank you.
What would be the maintenance contracts and contractual services?
Contractual services would be things like our elevators, monthly fees associated with that. It could be generators. There's fees associated with those contracts. Some of the, a large one that we've recently added is chemicals for the building, HVAC, heating and cooling systems. They weren't properly treated before, so that is falling underneath the contractual service. Inspections, things like that.
Kenny, on water and sewer, on your commodities, 4301 to 4310. Do you know what billings was year to date on that by chance? I know water lags behind, but it was 4302 water and sewer. You had 8,600 year to date. And I appreciate there's a decrease there, but
Right. I do have the screen up so I can give you updated numbers as they stand right now, and he's at 10,668 for water and sewer.
and I guess my question is, you've done great work on the steam traps and mitigating the boiler's usage on the water. So if we're halfway through the year and let's round up to 11,000, it's 22,000 more. I mean, it's not, I realize it's a cold winter and there's some energy intensity too on that, but
I don't disagree that we probably could reduce that.
would you feel comfortable going to, let's say 27,000? 30,000?
Yeah, I think 30,000 would be a good round figure.
So I might recommendation would be $17,299 less there. Do you have the same, Dennis, on 4310 and 4301?
Hold them up here. $4310 currently is $34,500. That's on electric and power.
How about 4301, please?
4301.
Mm-hmm.
Date is 17,288.
But I'm sure there's some lag in billing with that, and it's,
Right, that'd be a month behind, right, Dennis, or no?
Correct.
Yes.
And don't we use gas for heat?
Yes.
So we may have some pretty big bills coming in.
yeah, I'm comfortable with that flat, so thank you.
Now, a lot of his increases, he's got about 4 different line items here with maintenance, 5 different line items. He's added in money there because there's always maintenance repairs that we've never budgeted before that usually come up during the year. So it's trying to build in some safety factor that he does have money for repairs and maintenance for each individual building. So you see there are some jumps in about 5 different line items.
Why so much more in plumbing?
I'm sorry.
You have 36,000 more in plumbing than we have actual year to date. 4450.
I'm anticipating quite a few plumbing problems. We can reduce the numbers if you'd like. I just don't know from any given one day to the next what these buildings are going to do. What I do know is the courthouse plumbing is not in good shape. We currently have a restroom on second floor in a judge's area that has been out of service for approximately 2.5 months. It's not an easy repair. The repair is tear the ceiling out beneath of it, which is on the first floor.
That's not a good area.
Not a good area at all. We can't get to it. So if we start tackling things like that, it's going to get expensive.
Not right above Pat's office, is it?
One of them.
Again, there's 2 ways to look at this. I know we don't want to inflate or ask for more money in the budget than what's necessary. On the other hand, we probably don't want to come back to the board every time we have a problem. And I think that's, you raised a good point, Jeremy, because you're going to see this throughout the rest of these building budgets as we go through. There'll be a couple of line items on different buildings where I have raised those some different areas, like plumbing or HVAC, to try to get more funding into some of those areas.
But you have identified projects, like you have buildings necessary repairs 4410. It's twice the budget that you've really ever had. But
Right.
you have programmed either anticipated expenses or projects that you see coming on the horizon that you're not just building this in with a...
I'm filling it in, but with that said, I'm filling it in not knowing what some of those are. I do know, for instance, when it comes to HVAC, now that we have a new front-end computer system in place and we're able to see what our buildings are doing and not doing, we're starting to identify some problems that we had no idea were present, and they're of a magnitude larger than what I would have expected.
There's when you look at these on these building costs, there's a couple things you can do. You can reduce them back somewhat. Then if it does come up, it comes out of reserves. Or you can leave them in. If he does spend it, it goes back into reserves. So it's kind of a hope it doesn't happen if you reduce it, but if it does, it comes out of reserves. But when we're taxing, we are taxing for the higher amount. So you got an option, tax for it now. If he doesn't spend it, put it back in reserves, reduce it the following fiscal year, or reduce it now and hope something doesn't happen, or something does not happen.
How about a suggestion that we maybe put this on wrap-up? Because it's one of those things where it's a potential for reduction if needed, but you know, something like a plumbing issue is a lot better to fix before you need to fix it, so to speak. So, you know, something that might be a $10,000 repair could jump to $20,000 or $30,000 if you get enough water damage. So, I think it'd be nice to keep it in at this point and maybe bring it back at wrap-up.
I kind of think I'd rather leave it in and err on the side of financial caution, if you will, because you seem to be in front of the board often
I do.
with things that need fixed, so I'd be in favor of leaving it in place.
Dennis, do you have the up-to-date on 4410? What the
Sure.
I apologize for interrupting. Sorry.
$12,558.
Thank you.
That's for buildings.
Kenny, how do you differentiate 4410 and 6105? And both of them say buildings and increase necessary repairs, and the one, there's nothing that's been spent, but we're asking for an increase of $10,879, and the other, you just pulled up 11 or 12,000 or something?
12,558.
And now we're jumping to 52, and trust me, I appreciate that we have all these things that you're identifying for which you don't want to need to come back before the board, but
6105 has supplies within it.
okay.
4410 does not.
And you have $10,000 some odd dollars that you're identifying that you're going to need to purchase supplies with?
My answer to that would be no.
Okay.
I think we could probably put that under the other, carry the supplies under the 4410 fund if that's what you'd like to do.
So I still give you what you need to be able to,
Yes.
okay. So my recommendation would be to zero that out if you feel like you can still
Absolutely.
float under that.
Around 10,000, right?
10,879.
Yep.
So you're not talking about moving that, you're just talking about zeroing it out here and having it covered under the other one. Okay.
On the very last item, 6381, was not previously in the budget. I added that line item. There was some talk about the need for some security equipment at one time and the possibility of installing a card reader on the other set of doors on the main entrance. I don't know if whatever the board chooses to do there, that's another possibility. We could remove that $4,000 or leave it in if you see a benefit to leave it there for whatever security needs the courthouse may have.
You're talking on the north doors?
Yes,
On the doors that aren't controlled by card now?
yes.
I don't foresee that we'd need to put card readers on those two. Mr. Reddick?
You talking on the Eagles building?
No, we're talking about the courthouse.
Right up here, we've got of the 4 doors, or the 2 sets of doors, the east ones have a card reader, the other ones are just the mechanical locks that we override open in the daytime. The other one's electronically controlled, but,
Give people access after hours, essentially.
well, they're already on of the east set of doors is already card access. I guess I don't see the need for,
It is.
Kind of agree with that.
And unless the board saw any need for any additional cameras or anything security related.
Where did that suggestion in particular come from?
The doors actually came up probably, I don't exactly remember where it came up, about 6 months ago or so. There was some talk about it would be nice to have that. I think the sheriff's department thought it would be nice to have that set on a set of